Welcome. Today, I wanted to actually talk about this. A lot of you guys are already in the Tony Robbins environment. So this is not anything new. We have actually learned this from Business Mastery. And if you have not been in the Tony Robbins Business Mastery, I totally suggest you to do it because this is something that every company have, which is the broken chain. And Tony Robbins talk about this. The value chain of your company is very, very important. And the number one thing that we have learned from most of my clients, the number one problem that usually they talk about is the virtual assistant doesn't really understand me, or we have some miscommunication, or I just recently 5 minutes ago just hear one of the clients say, hey, I feel like I have some friction with my virtual assistant. They don't really know what is the outcome that we want. So I thought today this call is going to be very helpful because this will serve as a reminder call if you have already attended Tony Robbins Business Mastery before. If not, this will be something that will give you kind of like a structure, a framework in order for you to have a better communication with your virtual assistant. Ultimately, by the end of the call, you will have a much better context on how to communicate with your virtual assistant. And also, just to remind you that we actually have trained your VA on this concept before in their first 30-day training. I just have never really trained you on it. If you have any questions, feel free to type it down below or let us know so that way we know how to assist you and help you out. Okay? So the topic of today is called the value chain, the 3 core musts by Tony Robbins Business Mastery. And the 7 reasons why the value chain break down is number 1, lack of clarity. Number 2, give up the responsibility. Number 3, make assumption. Number 4, fail to verify. Number 5, attitude, mindset, belief. Number 6, delegated instead of leverage. That's a huge distinction I will go over in a little bit. Number 7 is fail to get help or not coachable. The first one, just like I talk about, I will be going into it even more in a little bit here, which is lack of clarity. A lot of business owners, because we are all solo entrepreneur at the very beginning, a lot of you are just starting to hire people, or you just hired maybe your first 5 and you're getting to the next level. Every steps of the way have different clarity questions. And obviously the bigger the company is, the more clear you need to be at, right? Number 2 is giving up the responsibility. Ultimately, sometimes we might think that, oh, this is already done, right? So I'm giving it to somebody. But then the question is that, do you have the clarity and say, hey, I'm going to give this to you and now you are fully responsible? Or a lot of the time, what happened is that the VA will think that, well, ultimately it's still the boss's responsibility. So even though they tell me to do it, they will follow up with me instead of me following up with them. That's why I always talk about the power of follow-up. It is very important that you let them know who is ultimately responsible for that task, whether or not they know the direction of it. Big assumption, we tell the virtual assistant the very first day when they're coming in for onboarding, the word assume means you're making an ass out of you and me. So never assume, never make assumption. If you have a feeling or you have a gut feeling about, oh, something is kind of off, maybe I should ask one more question, listen to the intuition and ask the question. And same thing with the business owners, right? Anytime if you feel like, I feel like I need to tell them about something, even though it might not be important, but trust me, the gut is telling you that, hey, you need to tell them something about this. If not, they would not know. Because ultimately, truth should be told, they really do not know what they don't know. And when we talk about the word common sense, actually everybody have their own different common sense. Do you know that in United States, you can just walk across the road, you do not actually have to look at the car because it's the car responsibility, like the driver responsibility, to check whether there's any pedestrian crossing the road. However, if you go to Asia or UK, it is the pedestrian responsibility to watch whether there's cars or not. You don't just walk across the road because it's not the driver responsibility to watch you. It's different common sense, but they're both right because from 2 different countries. So common sense is really not so common. This is one thing I want to drill down to all the business owners here, because a lot of times like, oh, they just do not have common sense, but it is your common sense that makes sense to you. Number 4 is obviously fail to verify, because you're like, well, they have the common sense, they know what to do, right? And then we don't really do the verifying. So like what Tony said, clarify and verify. Make sure that you have clarity and then you do the verification, right? Hey, I just clarified this thing with you. Now let's verify, make sure that you understand what I am talking about. And then the attitude and mindset and belief. I think this is one of the very, very big key. The difference between my services and everybody else's services is that we focusing on looking for the people who have the right attitude, and then we instill the right mindset into them so that they can believe that they can do it. Then everything will work. But a lot of time what happens is that we tell the VA that, hey, well, I want you to get this thing done, but they don't have the right attitude, they don't have the right mindset, they do not have the right belief, and they're like, I don't think I can make it happen. And then even though you say, yeah, do this, do that, do this, and they're like, yeah. But at the end of the day, they just do not get that done. Just remember, as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, especially like for me, I constantly, every day, I learn a lot of stuff. I learn about the approach, I learn about mindset. But a lot of time, we do not instill all that into our VA. So ultimately, we're constantly growing, but the VA is still there to do all the work that you need to do. And then the gap was just getting bigger and bigger. So either you spend time to close the gap with them, or you work with us so that we can help you close the gap, so that we can instill more common sense to them that you do not have the time to do it, or you do not have the capacity to do it, or maybe you just don't want to do it because you're so busy with your client, right? And again, what Tony Robbins always talk about is you wanted to delegate instead of leverage. Leverage is higher end, whereby the people already know exactly what you want to do, but delegate means that, you wanted to focusing on it step by step and delegate it well. And we will go over that in a little bit here. And last but not least is fail to get help when not coachable. For our environment, we always look for people who are coachable, people who are curious and have open mind. One thing that I train our clients on at the very beginning is be very curious and do not use the concept that, oh, I have hired people in United States before and this worked, so this will work when I hire my virtual assistant too. That is absolutely inaccurate, because the virtual assistant will not know the culture that you have with the virtual assistant is totally different than who you have that is born and raised in America. The culture, the structure, the background, everything's different. So again, the common sense wasn't good. And obviously that failed to get help, I would say, compared to the people in America and people over there. If it is America and if they are men, they tend to ask for help faster. If they are women, they will still kind of think about bothering you. In Asian culture, even they actually have a hard time asking for help, because they actually have this two thing that they have in mind, which is, well, maybe I will be bothering them because they're busy, so let me figure it out, but they just couldn't figure it out. Or they will be like, if I ask this question, is it a stupid question? Maybe I'm gonna be too dumb for it. So then they do not want to ask that question because they don't want to feel shame. And this is something that we're constantly training them on, to remind them about it, because ultimately before they come to us, they have 20, 30, 40 years of training in the outside world. And now we are bringing them in with the first 30 days, give them a solid foundation. And then every Wednesday, we're training them on it. So that way they're not going to lose it. Because again, if you don't use it, you lose it. If you don't grow, you lost. But this is ultimately the 7 reasons why a value chain breaks. So let me tell you a really good story. I recently wanted to attend an event. They asked, hey, would you want to attend it physical or virtual, right? So then I just told my VA, I said, hey, I want to attend this, please register me for it. Which is amazing, because then she crafted out a very nice email to send it to them. And then all of a sudden I got an email and say, hey, Phyllis, I'm so excited to see you in New Jersey. I was like, in New Jersey? No, don't want to go to New Jersey. Then I was like, oh man, let me go back and look at the email. And the email say, hey, I'm so excited. I want to meet you guys physically, go to the event. Then immediately I tell my VA, I'll say, hey, I didn't say I want to go to physical. I want to do it virtually because I couldn't really travel. First thing in my mind is like, common sense, right? I just came back from Asia. I've been traveling a lot. I obviously want to stay home and attend this meeting, right? Because it's only like 3 or 5 days ahead of time. I practice a lot of screenshot, right? So that my VA screenshot it for me and say, hey, can you please register? And I realized that I forget to put the word virtually on there. And she just assumed that I want to be there physically because it was a very amazing networking meeting that I could go to. And I was like, man, I broke my value chain because I don't foresee that she doesn't know, because I assume that she would know that I want to go physically. That is a big thing that constantly have happened in the business, even though I am preaching for it, but sometimes it happened to me too. One time, Tony Robbins also talked about this. They actually get the designer to design a postcard that is advertising UPW, and the postcard get through the designer portion and get approved, and then there's a verification portion get approved, and then it go to the printing, it got printed out, and then it went all the way to the warehouse. Right before it goes to mail out, the warehouse people noticed that the phone number was wrong, and it failed so many times on the verification, because ultimately I think the artist was thinking that, well, somebody else will verify, they're in charge of only the design, but somebody else will verify the phone number and all the details, and then the other people would think that, oh, maybe the other person is doing it, because there's no clarity. Do not know who is supposed to do what, and there's not a specific checklist on, did we verify phone number, did we verify address, did we verify all these things, and all these things could be easily done by just a simple checklist. But a lot of time we just kind of quote unquote like lazy, or like everybody we know how to exactly check it, but unfortunately everybody's not us. That's why I love Michael Gerber E-Myth book talking about how McDonald's scale very systematic way, because everything was a checklist, everything's based on systematic, so the burger would never be overcooked or undercooked. So what happened is then you go all the warehouse people, and what the warehouse people did is they're like, well, let me just do this, let me put it on hold and let me send an email to let them know that the phone number was wrong, and then we'll wait for somebody to come back. However, that position, it wasn't when he emailed it out, he just totally forget about it because he thought he has done his due. It's not his responsibility, right? And then somehow that email did not go to their email box. Somehow it go to spam or somehow it got missed. And then next thing you know is Tony is like, hey, how come nobody's calling us to book for this UPW ticket? They're like, I don't know. Then they trace from one step to the other chain, and then they realize that the postcard is still at the warehouse. Oh my goodness, right? Then Tony got so mad about it, and at the end they have to figure out a way to do it the cheaper way to send it out. However, the problem with that is it was too late to advertise. It cost them extra money to reprint the postcards. Long story short, it costs them about, I think, $1.5 million in real money to refix the problem. And then, but overall they lose, I think, like at least $5-6 million in direct or indirect revenue because they missed the time of advertising that event. And again, this happened on a day-to-day basis. And what I love is that whenever you find that there's a broken chain, figure out where is the broken chain and then what you need to do. Spend some time, 10, 20, 15 minutes to create a process so that moving forward, that thing doesn't happen anymore. Or reassign another person so that moving forward, that thing wouldn't happen anymore. Okay? The value chain. This is really, really good. I want you to learn it. And we have already taught the VA how to do it too. So the 3 core maps on the value chain, okay? Number 1, effectively receive. We train the virtual assistant that, hey, you have to make sure that you effectively receive the information from your clients. So I always tell them it's almost like throwing a basketball, right? When you receive the ball, you want to make sure that you really hold it and you have all the information. And what Tony talked about here is obviously make sure that you're active. You are receiving it actively, which means that you're listening to it. You're not multitasking, right? You're taking notes down. You're really understanding what your boss wants. And then intelligently, we are very prideful that we hire a lot of intelligent virtual assistants, but you also want to think about it, right? What else can I ask about the questions? How can I do this? What is the chokehold of the business? What roadblocks will I be running into? So that way we can ensure that it is done right. And then explicitly, so in that way you make sure that you get all, it's like, I always think about a box, right? And you make sure that everything is in the box, right? You just put everything in and make sure that it's clean and clear. And then number 4 is very important, which is clarify and verify, which is, hey, I'm telling you, I need you to do this. So for example, like right now we're doing YouTube video. Some of you guys will be watching this video from, hey, make sure that the thumbnail is right, the title is right, the emotion is right, the intro is right, the outro is right, the way we edit the video is right, the music is right? And then afterwards, you want to ask your virtual assistant, in this case, my virtual assistant, John, and it's like, John, did you get all these things down, right? Then John will say, yeah, the title is this, the thumbnail is this, right? The music is this, the time is this, the link is this. Okay, that's good. Okay, perfect. Let's move forward to it. Just like what this says, leaders listen and find the implicit communication, not just the explicit communication. So again, explicit is something that you voice out, right? But as a leader, you also, just like what I talk about intelligently point, is you wanted to also think it through, and you also wanted to listen to the emotion, listen to things that is not being told to. For example, if I am super nervous, I'm super stressed, and I'm telling you this, what is that going to tell you? That to obviously tell you that this thing is super important. I know a lot of stress to make sure that this is done. Chances is I'm also not giving you enough information because I'm stressed out. So how can I give you really good information, right? So you also wanted to figure out what is that information and then try to ask more question or hold it off. And then the VA should wait for you to have better emotion, then ask you better question. Or when you feel better, then you can reach out to your VA and say, hey, I know just now I was too stressed. I didn't give you enough information. So let me give you more information about this. And then after they receive it, what they wanted to do is add significant and needed value. The significant means whatever that you have already tell them and needed value into it. So every time we get them to receive, for example, what we do it with John, right? After John know all these things, John's going to go back and get all the work done, making sure that, okay, the thumbnail is right, making sure they cut the videos right, and all that. You add a ton of value into it, because without adding value, if you give it back to you, that means that we didn't receive it correctly. So the second thing is always add a significant value and needed value. As an entrepreneur, as a business owner too, when your VA giving you the task back, you also want to give them significant and needed value, which is in terms of feedback, right? Telling them what you really want, what you don't want. And a lot of time it's because you actually don't know what you want. So then start with what you don't want. I don't like this color. I don't like this. I don't like that. I don't like that. If you remove all the things that you don't like, most likely that's what you like. So this part is pretty simple. And then the third one is timely and effective supply and verify. So then when you receive it, you want to verify, okay, like what I talk about, is the thumbnail right? This is right. That's right. That's right. Perfect. And then also making sure that it is on time. I think that timeline is very, very important. Every single one. Right now we are using Asana in our business. I can obviously do another video about how we use Asana so that you guys can know. What it does is that we use Asana and we always have a deadline. So we're very deadline driven. So we know that, okay, this has to be done at this time, because if we pass the time, then it's obsolete, right? For example, this PowerPoint presentation, I need to present this day at this time. If my VA send this to me tomorrow, it doesn't work anymore because we're already past the time. On time is very important. So that's why timely effective. And then number 3, clarify and verify. That's what the next link is, to understand what's needed, the added value, by whom and when. When you receive it, then you will say, okay, I saw all these things that need to be done. Okay, perfect. Everything is done. Then you move this to the next person. Then now you are going to be supplying this to the next person. Or if it is not, then you wanted to clarify and verify and let them know what else is needed and when do you want it back again. And then you just give it back to them again. And then for them to be able to receive it effectively again, and then add the significant value and then supply it back to you. So then this will become a chain loop, right? So effectively receive, make sure that they receive it effectively, and then add significant and needed value. And afterward, you supply it in a timely and effective manner, and then you verify. And if everything was right, then the chain stopped at you. If not, you verified it. Then what you do again is you let them know what else is needed. So then you supply it again effectively and timely. Then again, they receive it effectively, and then they add significant value, and then they come back, and then for you to supply the correct information and verify it and receive it back. And then people are always asking me, right? Well, Phyllis, what do they need to know? And what are some of the stuff that you can kind of give it to me so that way I can quantify them? And I love this. So the 6th thing that we can receive and supply, which is the 6th thing. Tony is really nice. He talked about Irene MD. So in that way, it's easier for you to remember what is the 6th thing, okay? The 6th thing is information, the concern, the challenge, the need, the opportunity. The 2nd thing is the request, the clarification, the information, the action, material, and decisions. Number 3 is the emotion. How do you feel? Are you feeling stressed? Are you feeling relaxed? Are you feeling excited? Are you feeling like upset, right? What is the emotion behind this task that you get them to do? What is the need? I need this to be done so that we can get this thing done. I need this to be done so that I need to get that done. What is the need of this thing? And the material obviously could talk about, maybe you need whiteboards, you need papers, or you need Zoom accounts, whatever things that you need to put this together, PowerPoint, and then decisions and deadlines. When is it going to be done by? Decision is one thing that I personally have been trying to improve a lot, because I'm a lot of time really hard on making decisions. So I do have Monique, who is my COO, and she is the opposite of me. So she actually makes decision faster. So a lot of time, if I could make the decision, I'll let her make the decisions, and then we'll tweak it afterwards. And that kind of speed up the time a little bit too. So ultimately, it's this 6, okay? Whenever you're giving your virtual assistant something to do, you always want to think about, okay, did I provide all the Irene MD for them or not? You can close your eyes and try to remember, okay, what is Irene MD? What's Irene MD? And what we do actually, we also have a worksheet that we just put it on. So anytime we are giving somebody something, we will just get them to fill it in. So in that way we remember, okay, these are the stuff that I need to provide to them so that they can effectively utilizing all of them. I will put it in the link down below here. So that way you can download it, and then you can use it for your own office, whether you're using it for your assistant, a virtual assistant, or maybe freelancer. This will be very helpful for them, because ultimately, again, common sense is not so common, and at the same time, they don't know what they don't know. So you wanted to provide it to them. The 5 choices of action. I really, really love this. This really reminds me a lot about things, especially when we are entrepreneurs who are overachievers and we try to do so many things. Instead of focusing on the 1, 2, 3 things, we usually try to figure out the 5, 6, 7, 10 things, and it will miss stuff. Not intentionally, but we just will, because of our personal habits. And I personally myself is still trying to learn how to scale it down. And the good news is obviously I now know how to do it, which is every time I have a big project, I just hire a virtual assistant who can just focus on that one project only. So then I will have multiple projects, but I will have one project manager managing it. So in that way I hold them accountable and responsible to get that work done instead of me. And thus I don't lose the traction of what I want to get done in the same time. Remember, what people always talk about is that the difference between the rich and poor people, the wealthy and the non-wealthy, is how they spend their time. Because time is the one thing that everybody have the same, but the way that you're utilizing them is totally different. If you have the mindset that, man, I am just gonna do everything myself, chances is you're gonna grow a lot slower. And why would I say that? Because I've been through that. In the first 10 years, I am proud owner that I do everything myself. And man, $1 million is so hard for me to crack, because everything has to be done by me. And I don't have a life. I don't have time to call my mom. I don't have time to eat. I don't have time to sleep. I don't have the time to play. And now my life is so different because I have so much time, because my virtual assistant are the one that's getting things done for me. So my things are are still done. It's just not through my time, right? It's just very minimal on my time, fraction of my time. So I get a lot of things done with a very short period of time. I think that is just one of the big caveats that everybody needs to learn about, because that thing itself will change the whole thing for you. So again, going back to this, number one thing is accept it and act on it. Promise and keep your promise to deliver it on time. Every person you hire is very important to make sure that this is done. The second thing is ask for clarity on content or timeline. As much as possible, we just talk about receive it effectively. And then number three is negotiate or make a counter proposal. I think this is something that we spend a lot of time on too. It's like, well, boss, I love speed. I am fast. I want to get things done fast. But a lot of times the VA will be like, hey, boss, I need more time because I might have 1, 2, 3 projects in my hand already. I don't have the time to do it. Then you can make a counter offer. Okay, no problem. So do you need to hire one more people, or do we need to delay the deadline? I will be rolling out a challenge pretty soon here, and I was planning to do it on the 24th, but now I have to push it behind because I just do not have the time to do it. Now we have too many projects that we're trying to roll out. So again, making a counter proposal that we're going to do it next month instead of this month. And so then we can renegotiate. The key of this whole thing is that we have to be 100% honest with each other. We have to build that trust with each other that if things doesn't work, we need to tell people. If we cannot negotiate or we cannot make the counter proposal, then you reject it and just say, hey, I'm sorry, I can't do it. I think this is the number one thing that you would need to give the authority to your virtual assistant and say, if you cannot do it, let me know. Same thing for you. If you cannot do it, right, let your virtual assistant know, because then they know what's going on and then they can move forward instead of them sitting there and waiting for you. And then at the end of the day, you're like, oh man, they worked 40 hours and they didn't get a lot of things done. And I know, I understand, but the key is that they might be just waiting for you, sitting around and don't know what to do, because ultimately they're waiting for you to give them responsibility. And ultimately we do train them and say, hey, the power of follow-up, right? The money is in the follow-up. So make sure that you follow with your clients and ask them, what do they need? Instead of just sitting there and waiting for the task to, fall from the sky and receive it and do it, right? But the last but not least, and you can see this in red, this is super duper important. This is something that I myself have hired a VA to prevent me from ignoring them, because sometimes I'm so busy. By the time 4 or 5 o'clock come, I'm just like, I don't feel like doing anything anymore. Subconsciously, I will ignore some of the stuff that I see. So I actually have a virtual assistant, again, checking my email, checking my messages, ensuring that I'm responding to every single thing that I need to respond to. If there's a question mark, we need to have an answer to respond to it, right? When you ignore it, you cut the value chain, it burn the client, the company, yourself, and your teammate. This is one thing that we tell the virtual assistant. Make sure that every single email that you have from your client need to be received. But same thing from the client. If you start to ignore your virtual assistant's information and you do not encourage them to follow up with you until they get it done, then you will have a lot of open projects out there and you have no idea what happened. And then that will become a trend for your company. And pretty soon your company will not do well because you ignored it. And then they're going to learn the habit of ignoring. Then they will ignore it. And the next thing you know is like, hey, did we get this done? No, we didn't get it done. Why not? I don't know. We just didn't get it done. Oh, I forgot about it. That's one thing about ignoring, right? I forgot about it. Or I didn't see the email. And I personally do think that this is an ongoing learning, feeling forward learning, because the bigger the company is, the more things that we will miss. Not necessarily that we're ignoring it. It's just that, you have to create more system structure and process to ensure that things are not being ignored. And I think that's one of the huge things that we all need to learn about. And that is the 5 choices of action. Make sure you accept it and act on it. Ask for clarity, negotiate, and make a counter proposal if it doesn't work. If not, reject it. Please make sure that at no means to ignore it. If you do know that you have the habit of ignoring, then you want to put the responsibility to your virtual assistant or to your assistant that they are not allowed to ignore, okay? Because you pay them, right? So this is one thing that I always talk about. You pay them. So then you can tell them what you want them to do. And what I do for my virtual assistant, my assistant, I always have that it is your responsibility to ensure that I get things done. If I don't get it done, it is your fault, not my fault. I feel so good after I effectively delegate and leverage out my stuff. I know some of you guys are like, oh, that is kind of harsh. Well, I pay them to do the job, right? And thus, I always clarify very right with them too that, hey, if you cannot take on the responsibility to ensure that I get the work done, then I cannot hire you. Then I will have to hire another person. So to me, I love that expectation, and my VA love that expectation, because then they know what is and what is not. So now we're not guessing each other and say, this is right. Is it you? Is it me? We just don't really have to guess that anymore. We know that if there's a thing that need to be done, it is their job to make sure that it's followed through. It is not my job to check in on them and say, hey, how's the job? Like it or not, it works for me, and I would love you to try it on, kind of like a jean, right? Just try it on, see what that fit you or not. I can promise you that just by this one tip at the very end here will save you so much stress stress, and will save you so much brain cell to think about all the things that needs to be done, because they will be automatically done because you have hold somebody else accountable to ensure that that thing is done. Well, thank you so much for coming in. I really appreciate you watching this training and recording, and thank you so much for giving us your trust and learning all these things, because again, life will never be the same if you're using virtual assistant. We only live once. How you want to live it, it's on you. It's my mission to free entrepreneur and business owners so that we can live the life that we want, so that we can do what we want, when we want, with who we want, however we like. So I look forward to see you on another training, and have a good day. Bye.